All right. I would like to welcome everybody to this special event. We are talking about selling software companies on integrated payments. So I've known Caleb Avery for a while, and we've had him on the podcast several times. And I reached out to him several months ago, and he and I started talking about ways that we might be able to work together to help bring this opportunity to the larger agent ISO community. This opportunity of finding these integrated, these software companies where we can bring them integrated payments. And so before I introduce Caleb, I just want to talk about this opportunity for a second and the way I see it. As you all know, I do these live events maybe once every month or every other month. And I try to reserve these live events for things that I really believe are going to make a huge dent in the 1099 ISO kind of world. And this is one of those things. And as we get into 2023, we have to start looking at things a little bit differently. Okay. We don't want to just think in terms of either ourselves or our agents. We're just going to go out, we're going to walk down the street, we're going to walk into businesses, and we're going to sell them a terminal. Is there a place for that in the market? Absolutely. Many of you are doing that. But what we really want to do is we really want to look at other ways that we can grow our portfolio, other ways that we can attack it. And so what we're going to show you today is very different. So you got to like get your mind out of the box, right? This is not a good event for you to be in your little box. I don't care what you're doing. This is going to be different. The, prospecting is different. The people we're targeting are different. The compensation is different. Everything is different. But it's a massive, massive opportunity if you can wrap your mind around it. So before we dive in, I have one question that I want to ask. I'll probably think of another couple here in a minute. But over in the question box, I have a very simple question. Have you ever sold a software company, whether you referred it to a payment processor or you set it up yourself or whatever? Have you ever sold a software company and integrated payment processing with them? And if so, give me a number. So I've done one deal. I've done, give me a 0 or a 1 or a 0 or a 3 or whatever it is. So over in the question box, just type it in there. Let me know how many that you've done. I'm just really curious. I like to get a feel for the audience because I don't know, am I talking to people that have no idea what I'm talking about, or have you done a lot of these deals? Okay, awesome. So Paul's got 5 under his belt, David with 1, Rob with a couple, George with 8. Awesome. It doesn't surprise me, George. Let's see here. Sent some deals in, hasn't gotten the results yet. Here's a couple more that have some, quite a few that have none. So if you're one of the people that's like, I don't know, I don't even know what you're talking about yet, you're fine. We're going to cover that in a minute. So it looks like a lot of people have not done any, and that's great. Yeah, I love that several people said I have no idea what you're talking about. So thank you for joining the event. Yeah, I promise that you will know what I'm talking about in a few minutes. It's a huge opportunity, but that's great. So for those of you that are just joining, over to the right in the question box, I just really asked you, have you ever sold a software company on integrating payment processing into their software? And so, yeah, I love it. So all over the map. So we've got some people that have done a lot of deals. We have most of you have not done any software integration deals yet. And that's totally fine. That's why we are having this particular event. So without further ado, I want to introduce my good friend, Caleb Avery. All right. So Caleb, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Really appreciate you having me on, and really excited that so many people turned up to learn more about monetizing payments.
Yes, we have a pretty full house here right now, so it's exciting. So Caleb, start off by just kind of giving everybody a broad strokes, kind of high level here. What is Tilled and what do you guys do?
Certainly. So, I'm Caleb Avery. I'm the founder and CEO here at Tild, and the big premise that we talk a lot about here at Tild is the idea of payback as a service. And so we're here to help ISVs and vertical software companies that are interested in the idea of being able to monetize the payments that are flowing through their platform. And so we're working with companies like dental software platforms, golf course management platforms, gym management platforms that are out there signing up SMB customers, and we are providing the payment infrastructure solution to these software platforms, and oftentimes replacing something like a Stripe or a Braintree, and allowing these software companies to have easy to implement technology, and then the ability for them to actually generate revenue off of all of those payments flowing through their platform.
So I love that explanation. Let's also then dive a little deeper into the agent ISO side of this, which is really unique because, as I think everybody on this call knows, or they should know, Stripe doesn't have a really vibrant, network of referral 1099 agents or ISOs, right? So this is a little different. So talk about that. Why do agents and ISOs work with Tilled? What is that relationship like, and why do they do that?
Very relevant question for today. So I think Tilt is pretty unique. We're one of really the only companies in the space that really have this thriving channel of referral relationships with agents, ISOs, payments consultants, people from the same background that I came from, that you came from, that have gone out there and sold traditional payments. And for me, I started in the ISO world and then started to see this opportunity to go out and work with these software businesses. But where I struggled was actually finding a home for these software companies where it can actually take these businesses that has the right technology, that has the right support, that has the right structure in place. And so about 15 months ago at Tilt, we started allowing our referral partners to bring these ISV, to bring these software company opportunities to Tilt. And that's quickly become a major part of our go-to-market strategy, where literally yesterday we just hit 100 referral partners. So we
Yeah,
now
I saw
have
that.
100 different people that are out there, referring deals to Tilt, and it amounts to about half of our deal flow in the business. And so it allows for our agent, for our ISO partners to be able to refer software companies to Tilt, leverage our technology, leverage our support teams, our operation teams to actually get these deals done. And one of my favorite stats, and I think one of the reasons why so many of our partners have chosen to work with Tilt, is that if you get our sales team in front of a qualified software company, right now our close rate is 55% on those deals. And so these partners are coming to Tilt because they know that we can close these deals, they know that we can get them up and running, and they know that we can create a nice recurring revenue stream for all of us.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so here's what we've done today for this event. So I sent Caleb a list of kind of topics, and he and I are just going to kind of go back and forth on these. I'm going to start by asking him some questions, and then I'm going to give some insights from my experience as well. And so this one here, identifying a prospective software company, I'm actually going to start this one out, Caleb, if you don't mind,
Go
because
for it.
I want to talk about CC storage for a second, because I really haven't talked about it at all. And so when I came to Caleb and said, hey, we need to do something together, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of document my own journey, because I own an ISV. So I own an independent software vendor. It's not one where we have a reseller team. So don't worry, you don't need to, I'm not promoting my company in any way. I just want to use it as an example here. But I have a company that builds software for self-storage management, to help self-storage property owners manage their property. And we were having some pretty significant issues with the processor that we were working with in terms of underwriting delays and things like that. And there was just a lot of friction in kind of getting set up with that. And so I told Caleb, I said, hey, let me document my journey and see what I can learn. And so that software company that I own, that again, we have a software company, we go out and sell individuals who own self-storage properties. So we sell those merchants, and we have now integrated fully with Tilt, and we're about to kick it into gear January 10th, so in a few days here. And it's been an incredible experience, and that I think is a really good example of the type of company, Caleb, that Tilt is really well positioned for. So I'm going to kind of weave that into the narrative a little bit in my experience. But Caleb, could you kind of talk about that a little bit, as far as we're this vertical specific company, we build software for businesses, and we've had a great experience. Talk about businesses that are, when we say a software company that could integrate with Tilt, what are we talking about? What is that type of company? What are the criteria you're looking for?
Yeah. So for us, when we think about the ideal customer persona for Tilt, we're almost exclusively talking about vertical software companies. We're not doing much within the marketplace segment, and at least for today, we're not targeting the actual SMB, the small business owner directly. We're really working through these vertical software platforms. And when I think about the sweet spot for Tilt is really low risk vertical software platforms, and so areas that we've seen a lot of success in being healthcare, nonprofit, gym and fitness management software, field services, property management solutions, ERP platforms, shopping cart solutions. And so, within that healthcare vertical, that would be things like the dental practice management software, chiropractic management software. And so it's a vertical software system that small business owner is using to run their business. And it's typically doing far beyond payments. It's got scheduling built in, maybe payroll built in. And so it's really, oftentimes a one-stop shop for a specific vertical to go out there and help them run their business.
And so you already touched on this a little bit, but now talk about what's not a good fit. So, I know I talked to your team about this, where you'll have referral partners that'll send deals over, and they don't quite understand maybe what a good fit is. So what's not a good fit? What are you not looking for?
We definitely get a lot of interesting deals sent our way that are not a great fit for Tilt. I think that the most obvious one would be high risk categories, and so we certainly get a lot of folks either coming directly to us or through referral partners that are just operating in what we all know are the kind of traditional high risk segments. We just don't have the right bank partners for that today. Geographically, we operate in both the U.S. and Canada. But we oftentimes get folks that come to us that have some unique geographic needs when it comes to their solutions, and then typically more like horizontal solutions are a bit harder for us. So if it's an invoicing platform that targets every vertical under the sun, that can be a lot more difficult from an underwriting perspective to get comfortable with the risk profiles, and those are often times really wrought with fraud. A lot of those, invoicing platforms just have a sign up now button on the website. They take any business, under the sun, and there can be a lot of fraud involved. And so typically I'd say kind of the MCC code or the geography can really be some of the bigger limiting factors for us.
I like that, and I think I'll even add a little context. Again, I'll go back to my own software company, which is a really good example of this. So to clarify for everybody, we're not talking about selling merchants. We're talking about selling the software company that goes out and sells the merchant. So in my case, one of the companies that I own is a software company. We built this software that allows self-storage property owners to manage their self-storage property. They will send out, emails, invoices, and things to the people that rent storage units from them. Our software company integrated with Tilled. Now, every time we get a new person, like I have an inside sales team, we have lead generation, we do Google AdWords, all those things. As we get leads in from people who own a self-storage property, and that self-storage property owner says, I want to use your software to manage my self-storage property and to bill my tenants, we say, that's great. Fill out this form so you can set up a new merchant account. And that form is then going to go directly to Tilled. Tilled is going to set them up with their own merchant account. And that merchant account then comes back to our software, and we integrate that in so that when that self-storage property owner is processing payments with their tenants, those payments are going through their merchant account that is with Tilled. But it's all really seamless, and I'm able to get them signed up really, really quickly. So Caleb, if you could touch on this for a minute, one of the questions I already see popping up here, is people are saying, well, but what if somebody's already processing payments? They're already with Stripe or whatever. So talk about that a little bit, as you're identifying these software companies, why are these companies looking to somebody like a Tilled versus they've already got an integration? Because I know most of them are already accepting payments in one form or another.
Certainly, I'd say probably 90+% of the customers that sign up with Tilled already had a prior integration with someone like Stripe, Braintree, TSYS, you name it. We get pretty excited when we see that it's Stripe. That's usually a good indicator of it being a good opportunity for Tilled. I think, why do these software companies still, seek out a solution like Tilled if they already have Stripe up and running, they've already boarded merchants, they're already, processing transactions. I think one of the big reasons is this idea of monetizing the payments that are going through the platform, where for the majority of the software platforms that are partnering with Stripe or Braintree today, they're actually giving away the majority of the residual, the majority of the processing revenue, if not all of it, to Stripe, to Braintree. And so for some of these software companies, we have platforms that come to us with more than $1 billion in volume that are generating $0 a year on payments revenue. And so if you can come to them and show them, hey, here's how you could add millions of dollars in additional revenue, straight to your bottom line, that's a very compelling value proposition for these software companies, especially given how easy the integration is into Tilled. So in Q4, our average integration for the software companies that got up and running on Tilled was 23 days in Q4, and the record was 4 days. And so if you can plausibly go to these software companies and say, hey, we will have you up and running in a couple of weeks, and we can add hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in additional revenue straight to your bottom line, that is a very attractive value proposition for the owner of a software company.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. And so I think it's very important, I think, for our audience to understand that, because this is very different. When you go out and sell payment processing to a merchant, right, you're helping that merchant accept payments, right? When you go out and sell integrated payments to a software company, you're helping that software company to make residual income off of the merchants that are using their software. So it's a three-way partnership of you and the software company and Tilt, which we'll get more to in a minute. So I want to dig a little bit deeper in this. One thing I want to point out here, obviously, Caleb and I have 30 minutes here to have this conversation that could take 4 hours. One of the things I did with Tilt is I've created a training course, a video training course that dives a lot deeper into all of this and how to sell it. If you hang on till the end of the event, I'm actually going to give you a link you can go to tonight. It is set up, it's ready to go, and you're going to get 100% free access, not a free trial, free access that Tilt compensated my company to create it, and they're giving it to you 100% free. So hang on and we'll get to that. But I want to dive into the actual prospecting a little bit here, Caleb. So where do we go to find these software companies? If I'm an agent, I'm an ISO, what do I do? How do I start?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's obviously many different ways that you can go about getting access to these software companies and finding them. I think for me, one of the ways that I started out when I was, still doing door-to-door sales back in the day was just starting to have conversations with the actual small business owners themselves. So you walk into that dentist, you walk into that gym, you walk into, that golf course, and you start asking them about their processing. And at the time, I was trying to sell them just a side terminal. That was the solution that I had. But then as I started to inquire deeper and started to ask them about the software, they were frustrated with Stripe. They were frustrated with the experience. They were frustrated with the terminal. They were frustrated with the rates. And so the actual small business owner was helping me identify how to actually start the conversation, with that software company, because I understood the pain point that the customer, was experiencing. But I started out, that way, getting leads into those software companies just by going out and talking with the small business owners that I was already walking into, their doors. Beyond that, if you're not out there cold calling or you're not comfortable, taking that approach, there's a lot of online tools that you can use to find, small business owners. For us in the early days, we used one called Capterra. And Capterra is great because it actually organizes the software companies by vertical. And so,
Right.
If I were an agent or an ISO trying to figure out where to start, well, what industries are you interested in? Do you come from a background working at golf courses? Were you a server, working at restaurants? What industries do you really understand, the pain points of the small business owners? And start there. Go to Capterra and look up that vertical, and you'll see, sometimes dozens of software companies, operating in that vertical. And then you could use something like a sales navigator, to actually get the contacts and kind of initiate conversation with, folks from those software companies.
I love it. And I really love, I've done a couple of these deals, and mine always came from the first way you were talking about. Like you said, I kind of got to, even when I was selling full-time 7, 8 years ago, working with agents in the field, I would still run into situations where, I couldn't sell them. They had an integrated solution already, and there was just no way I was going to get that deal. And I would always say, what's the name of the software company you're working with? And I would just call them up, you know, and if I would have had Tilt back then that I could offer, I would have sold a lot more.
Yep.
But it's a great way to start that conversation, because as you pointed out before, a lot of times those companies don't even realize that they could make money from payment processing. They just found a gateway they could integrate with. They found a processor that would work with them, and they aren't even getting maybe they're getting 5, 10, 20%, but they're getting very, very little, if anything, on the payment processing. And so, I think that's where you kind of run into a lot of that. So what I thought we would do is let's switch topics a little bit, Caleb, but let's talk about the software companies themselves.
Mhm.
When you think about the software companies right now, what are some of the challenges that they face? Because I think our audience understands the small business owner, and they understand kind of the
Mhm.
plight of the small business owner and the challenges they face with getting business and high costs and all of that. What is the reality for a software company? What are the challenges they face?
Yeah. So from a software company's perspective, the challenges that they face differ a bit depending upon, who they're currently integrated to process transactions, or perhaps they're not integrated, to process
Right.
transactions. We already talked a little bit about, if I was a software company, working with Stripe, one of the biggest gripes is the fact that they're not monetizing the payments or barely monetizing, the payments flowing through their platform. But we also see a lot of these software companies that are working with, a gateway like NMI or authorize.net, and then they've got some ISO, behind the scenes. And the challenge is that, a software company partnered with someone like that or integrated directly to one of the legacy processor space is pretty different. So for those software companies, they're faced with very antiquated technology, and so oftentimes they're not able to deliver the crisp reporting experience or the great visual experience that they're wanting to deliver to their customers. And then often excuse me, oftentimes they have a manual PDF, merchant onboarding process to get, their in merchant sign up. And so we see a lot of times where the software companies are actually really struggling to convert their customers into, payment customers on the platform, because they either email out, that PDF application to the merchant, or they're just referring it out, to a third party ISO, and the conversion rates are pretty low, on those deals. And so the software company's frustrated because, they've got 500, dentists on the platform, but there's only 30 of them that are processing, payments with them. And so they're actually not generating that much revenue, on those payments. And so I think once you understand, who the software company, is working with today, that's when we really start to dig in and identify, what those pain points are, because they differ a little bit depending upon kind of who their current relationship is with today.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Even in my own experience for us, we were working with the self-storage property owners, and like you said, the big issue we had was, we would talk to them and, oh yeah, that sounds great. We want to do the payment processing, and then we'd send them a 17-page DocuSign, and we would never hear back, right?
Just
And
dies
so
on the vine.
yeah, and so for a software company especially, it's kind of like, if you're out in the field selling payment processing, I mean, you can kind of pull it off. It's still not great, but you can get your tablet out and kind of walk them through it. But when you're trying to work with customers remotely through in a software setting, they kind of have a higher expectation. They just want to, they don't mind signing up for payments, but they want to sign up for it. Give me a web form, let me sign up for it. And that's what Tilt offers. One of the other funny stories I was going to share, Caleb. I don't know if I had told you this or not, but there's a senior developer that we're in the process of hiring right now, and we were talking to him and kind of about what we do, and because some of the different things in payments. And he shared an interesting experience. I won't say the names of the companies because it would be a little embarrassing, but his previous position, he was working with this really, really large, like, national plumbing company, and he built this software for them where they work with all these different contractors, and they accept payments on this platform, and millions and millions of dollars a month. I think they do like $80 million a year in payments. Well, at any rate, he had integrated with kind of a legacy gateway and a legacy processor, and that's what they wanted him to integrate with. So he did that, and he actually ended up talking the management team into allowing him to instead integrate with Stripe, which was going to cost like a lot more. It was like 60 basis points of difference, but it was so annoying for him working with the APIs and the integration with this legacy company that he convinced them to spend like an extra 60, 80 basis points in order to go to Stripe, where they were still making no share of the money. And he got them convinced to make that switch, and none of them even talked about the financial implication. It was just the fact that there's things they wanted him to build that he just couldn't build because of how archaic it was. And so I think I think a lot of them are kind of looking at that. I mean, can you expand on that, Caleb? Like, how do these companies look at payment integrations today? What is kind of the way that they're doing it, and what are some of the additional pain points you're seeing on that side of things with kind of the actual integration itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a number of different challenges when you're trying to integrate into the legacy technology. One, you've got the actual upfront, like how long does it take? How much does it cost to go integrate, into some of these legacy solutions, where you could be talking about 6, 9, 12 months, of development effort to actually get, up and running, on one of these legacy platforms. And then once you're up and running, like what does that actually look like? What does the payment form look like? What does reporting look like? Where, I'll give you two scenarios. Do you want to log into a portal, download a CSV file, and email that to someone else on your team to handle, reporting? Or do you want, an API that has webhooks, that has metadata, and has this reporting API that you can query, in real time? Which one of those experiences, do you prefer? And I think that gets to that point where the developer's like, I actually can't build automation into this because the only way to access this data is logging into an environment and downloading a CSV file. There's not an API for me to call, to get access to this information, or hey, on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, they're going to set up a flat file, transfer to me, and that's the only way that I can get access to that data. And that's really limiting when it comes to what that integration, experience looks like. And, kind of specific, concrete example, one of our competitors, you can submit the like actual merchant application through their API, but there's no way for you to actually attach any DBA information to that business. And so they'll return back to your response saying like, hey, Jim Bob's LLC has been approved. Well, if you don't have any idea who Jim Bob's LLC is, then you actually have to go log in to their system to actually take action to activate, that merchant. Versus in our system, you attach metadata, you submit, that application, tell us the identifier that makes sense in your system, so that when we say, Jim Bob's LLC is approved, and you think of that as, Jimmy's boxing, arena, well, then you can automatically get that account configured. And so there's a lot of customization that you can create when you have access to modern, APIs and modern infrastructure that you simply cannot replicate if you're integrating into a legacy system that was built, 15, 20 years ago.
I love it. So I want to get to tilled compensation and some of the kind of building the exponential portfolio, as I like to call it. But before we do that, one more topic I want to touch on briefly here is the initial contact. So, kind of keeping with this theme of the prospecting side for our audience, okay, they go to Capterra or they are out prospecting and they find a software company through a merchant. And so they're going to reach out, they find out who they're supposed to talk to, and they have that initial conversation. What do they do? What do they say? What's the objective for that initial conversation, Caleb?
Yeah, so just, as you had mentioned earlier in the conversation, you always have the option to just call them up, cold call them. I think for a lot of us, listening in on this webinar, a lot of our day-to-day is cold calling. You're out there walking into 20, 25, small businesses, and the reality is it doesn't necessarily have to be different with these software companies, but you do have to change the approach. You have to change the value prop. You have to change the messaging because you're not just saying, hey, let me save you money, on your credit card processing and talking to them about, cash discounting solution. But you always have that opportunity to just give them a call and talk through, the value prop. I think I had mentioned earlier in the conversation, leveraging a tool like LinkedIn and Sales, Navigator to get their contact information. One of the things that we've seen from some of our referral partners is they build lists of the right contacts, the right types of software companies that they want to work with, and they set up email campaigns. And so they're setting up these sequences where they're actually leveraging a lot of the content that we've created at Tilled. So they're sending them a blog. Hey, the 5 signs that you've outgrown Stripe. Hey, here's how to add, $500,000 in revenue to your software platform. Here's why other software companies are interested in monetizing payments. And so you're actually dripping them out, content over a series of, 4 to 6 weeks, and then calling them. And then you're initiating dialogue with someone who's heard the value prop, who's familiar with your name, who's familiar with, what you're going to talk to them about. And so you've warmed up, that prospect with a series of emails, over time, and then cold call them. And then, you ask kind of what's the goal, of that initial conversation. I mean, candidly, I think that the goal is to try and get them in front of Tilt. If you can get them in front of our sales team, we all stand a very, very high chance, of closing that deal. And so can you open that door, enough and get enough of that value proposition across that they're willing, to hop on a call and learn more, from one of the people on our team.
I love it. So that's a great segue. So let's dive into what everybody wants to hear about. And by the way, we're going to do Q&A here in a few minutes. I just looked and it looked like some of you lost sound there for a little bit. I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that if you did, but it looks like it's all back up, and it was a little bit of a glitch there on GoodWebinar. But yeah, for those of you that have asked other questions, we saved some time at the end. We're going to do Q&A. But I want to do 2 things. I want to talk about partnering with Tilled and the compensation model. And then I want to talk about where you can go to get the free training on how to sell software companies, where you can get this information we're talking about. We go a lot deeper, get a lot more detailed information. So talk about partnering with Tilled. So Caleb, you know the audience, you know who this is. So what do they need to know about partnering with Tilled? I think, as a little preface to this is, it is different, meaning you're an individual agent, you're not a developer, you're not a technology expert. You need some help to get these deals done. So talk about that process a little bit of what it's like to partner with Till to get these deals done, Caleb.
Yeah, so I'd mentioned, earlier on in the conversation that we just signed up our 100th referral partner, and so as you can imagine, with 100 referral partners, there's definitely some variety to how we work with our partners, and so some of the referral partners that we work with are like I think you mentioned a guy named George who sold 8 software companies, so he's probably well versed in how to make contact, how the pricing works, the value prop, and he can
Right.
probably move that deal a lot further down the funnel. And so we have some partners that will find the companies, they'll have the first conversation, they'll negotiate the pricing, and they'll bring us deals that are fully closed. And it's really on our team to actually execute and get that company up and running and processing payments. But we also have other partners that we work with who are selling their first deal. This is the first software company that they're out there having conversations with, and our sales team is willing to get on that first conversation with you and that software company if that's what we need to do to help you close those deals. And then over time, as you get more comfortable with what Tilt is, the value prop, and how to sell to these software companies, then you can work your way further down the funnel. But I think for us, the whole mentality is just meeting our partners where they are in their journey selling to software companies. And so if you need us to provide some upfront training, you need us to be more involved, this is exactly why we created this training portal with you, because we really want to be that first partner that helps these agents and these ISOs close that first software deal. Because once you start to see that residual stream, coming in from these deals, it's pretty addicting, and it can become, pretty exciting. Additional revenue stream. And then you talked about kind of how does the model work? What does compensation look like? And it certainly
Right.
looks different than if you're going out there and selling direct to a business owner, because there's another entity involved. There's a software company who's expecting to be paid and expecting to earn revenue on all of the transactions flowing through their system, but it's also a much bigger pie. And so typically the economics look like the software company getting 66 to 70% of the actual recurring revenue off of every dollar processed through the system. And the vast majority of the time we negotiate a net revenue share with our referral partners. And so you're getting some percentage of whatever's left over after we collectively pay the software company. And so we're both incentivized to keep the residual that we give down to the software company as much as we can, and create a big pool for all of us. But I think the way that you've phrased it, I think in prior conversations, is smaller piece of a much bigger pie, where we have
Right.
software companies processing billions of dollars in payments. And so even if you're only getting a couple basis points on a few $billion, that can add up to a very, very sizable revenue stream, where I think our average partner is somewhere around like 100 million, in volume, flowing through their platform. And so for a referral partner, that could easily be $50,000 a year, in revenue to them. And you talked a little bit, I think, about this idea of like putting your portfolio on autopilot. And just to kind of double click, on that idea, every time that software company signs up another merchant onto their platform, that's additional revenue and additional residual for you as the referral partner, when you've basically done nothing to sign that up.
I love it. Yeah. And so let's dig a little bit deeper into that. So I love this idea. I call it the exponential portfolio, because, like you said, you might get, well, let's clarify something actually first, Caleb. So let's say I get somebody, they're doing $100 million a year. They're currently with Stripe. I just want to clarify this. There's actually a pretty good chance with that software company that you're going to actually capture. Tilt is going to be able to get that 100 million in existing processing and actually
Mhm.
switch those merchants from Stripe over to your platform. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely times where we're going in and converting the legacy portfolio base, where they're on WorldPay, they're on Stripe, and that software company actually wants to sunset that prior integration. They no longer want to support that integration into Stripe or that integration into WorldPay going forward, because there's development costs and maintenance required to do that. And so the software companies both incentivize from a development perspective, but also economically. We're saying like, hey, you convert that, $100 million, in
Right.
additional, volume over to Till, and that's probably, $500,000 or something in additional revenue to that software platform that they're not earning with Stripe. So it's very typical to see, not only the net new accounts, coming across, but also that existing portfolio coming over.
Right. So we have that foundational level of, okay, I sold a software company. They had, whatever, 500 accounts doing 100 million in volume. And so we got those 500 mids and that 100 million in volume. Now I want to talk about the exponential side. You touched on it a second ago, but, I want to clarify for our audience, at that point, you got a software company. Well, that software company, just like, again, like I started out talking about my own software company, I've got across the hall over here, I've got a room with salespeople, and we're spending tens of thousands of dollars a month generating leads to get self-storage properties who want to sign up for our software. And so every time that we sell a new self-storage property, that's a new mid that goes under Tilled. And so if you were the referring agent that referred our software company to Tilled, you would get a piece of that. So maybe you want to expand on that, Caleb? Did I say that right? Talk about kind of how that works long-term as you see these companies start to build up their engine of, signing up new payments accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one kind of analogous way to think about it is almost as though, that ISV is like a sub agent, that you're bringing on, underneath your portfolio, where every time they go out and sign, a new customer, they add a new mid to their portfolio. That's additional revenue, that's being generated for you every single month, even if you've never spoken with, that additional, small business owner. I mean, we have ISVs that add hundreds of new merchants a month to their platform. And so as an agent, like, you personally do not have the capacity to go out and sell hundreds of new, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to go door to door and sell 300 new merchants, next month on payments. If you do, God bless you, but you're probably not going to do that. But you add the right software company to your portfolio, you realistically could add hundreds of mids a month. And that's with one software company that you're partnering with, with Tilled. And then it starts to get exponential if you're adding more and more of these software companies, to the portfolio, with Tilled, where all of a sudden you have their entire army of sales agents that are out there, signing up the dentist, signing up the gym, signing up the golf course. And that's all adding to your portfolio, while you're either sitting on the beach or maybe you're still out there cold calling, signing up more deals. But either way, it's adding to your portfolio.
I love it. I love it. So, okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pull up a slide here, and bear with me as I explain this slide just a little bit. This is about the free training course. You're not going to use all caps. You're going to use all lowercase. But if you go to ccsalespro.com/tilled, TILLED, that is actually going to redirect you to a landing page for Tilled. And there's a form, which you can see right there at the top, what it looks like. But there's a form that you're going to fill out. When you fill that form out, it's going to then redirect you. So that'll send your information to Tilled so they can follow up to give you more information. That's going to then, redirect you over to the branded learning management system that many of you are already familiar with. And as soon as you log into that learning management system there, you're going to go right in and you'll see the training course right there when you log in. So what I did was I went into my new studio, which I'm very proud of, and we set it up for Tilled, and we made an entire video training course on how to sell software companies. I share some details about my own experience with Tilled. I get really, really specific about the compensation. So for those of you that are kind of like, what are you talking about with this compensation? I don't understand this, the split and the small piece of the really big pie. We literally show you the pie and the different pieces. So we have it all set up there. And so make sure right now, and I'm going to put it in the chat real quick as well. I want everybody to kind of stop what you're doing. And I'm going to put this link in here. All right, so take a look. Just send you the link, but again, it's ccsalespro.com/tilled, TILLED. So take a second right now. You can still hear me, but open up a different browser window, okay? And go ahead and go to ccsalespro.com/tilled. I want you to fill that form out right now before you forget about it, because I know how it is. We're all super busy. You blocked out your 45 minutes to an hour, and then you're going to move on to the next thing, and I get that. But I really want to make sure you get signed up for that. That way Tilled can send you some additional information, because this is one of those things that you're probably not going to do full time. I don't think very many of you on here are going to say, oh yeah, this is going to be my full-time job. So you want to make sure you have some information so that in 3 weeks, when you run across that software company that's a good fit, you're able to say, wait a minute, there was that company Tilled. I was on that event. I want to go back to that. So go to ccsalespro.com/tilled right now and sign up for that. And then we're going to dive in. And so Caleb, if you leave your webcam up here, I'm going to throw some questions your way. And then I'll do my best to answer a few of them as well. So let me just pull them up here. Okay. Awesome. So, I think the one question that I see on here quite a bit, Caleb, is just talking about that brand new agent, that they've been selling payment processing forever. This is what they do. What would you tell them? And as far as I think words of encouragement is really what a lot of them are looking for, is like, how hard is this? What do they really need to do? What kind of work do they need to put in order to, send Tilde one or two of these leads this year? Give them a little thought of like, what are they about to get themselves into?
Yeah, fair question. I mean, the reality is it's definitely different than going out there and selling, direct to merchant. And, the reality is, just as you face a lot of rejection going out there and talking, to small business owners, there's still a lot of rejection, when you're going out there, and talking to software companies. I think for me, what got me, motivated and excited in the early days was actually quite similar to my experience when I was first starting out, as a door-to-door sales rep, going out and selling to small business owners, where when you start to have a couple of these good conversations and you have this encouraging, interaction with these software companies where they really understand the value, of what it is that you're bringing to them, just those couple of good moments, even if you don't close that deal, a couple of these good conversations can really, get you going. And then once you get one of these deals under your belt and you can really see, the value in your wallet, the actual residual, coming through, that's certainly the biggest, motivation in terms of, what does it really take getting started. The reality is it is kind of what you make it. If you really want to be successful and you really want to close, a couple of these deals, you really have to put in the time, the energy, and the effort to really learn. Like, just as you did when you were going out to learn, how to sell direct to merchant, you got to work on your pitch, you got to work on your emails, you got to work on, how you go about prospecting, and you have to be intentional and put in the time and energy up front to all the activity that you need to do before you start selling to actually have the results. But if you're willing to do that, it's not necessarily that hard. Once you get them in front of, Tilde, we can close the deals. It's really just opening up that door and getting that initial conversation set up is really all you have to do. You don't have to close the deal. You don't have to walk them through the technical integration. Just get that first call set up, and we can help you take it from there.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think and one of the other things too I'll say is, if you're that person, that's thinking that way right now, go ahead and take a second and go to ccsalespro.com/tilde, fill out that form, then fill out the next form so you can actually get into the training. And I've got a lot of content in there about that. And we're actually even making, I believe we already have in there a separate course on the prospecting side as well. So I'm going to be working with Tilde most of 2023. We're going to be working together to continue to put out the good content to really help educate the audience on how to do this. And so I think, one of the challenges, Caleb, I think a lot of times the agents, they don't understand that world, of the software company. And that can be a little bit disconcerting. It's kind of like, oh, I understand, I really understand what a dry cleaner does. I understand what a hair salon stylist does, but maybe I don't understand what a software company CEO does. And so I think, going through the video course and understanding that world a little bit will hopefully give you some confidence. And that was kind of the reason that Caleb and I wanted to put that together. Question here from Lisa. She's asking about legal software. I wouldn't imagine that would be a problem, but Caleb, any thoughts on a software company that caters to attorneys?
We can definitely work with legal practice management software. There's always nuances, with every industry. My experience in the legal practice management space is they have some very specific needs around split funding for like trust account versus operating accounts, and we have the ability to leverage that kind of split funding. And so, there's certainly no reason why you wouldn't be able to bring a legal practice management software to Tilde.
Cool. Yeah, one of the things I think would be pretty cool there, Caleb, would be the ACH, because one thing we really enjoyed about Tilde is that you guys have both the ACH and the card processing. The API is pretty slick for both of those. So that's really nice as well. I think a lot of legal practices would like the ACH side of it too.
Same thing with property management companies. There's a number of verticals out there that are like 80-90% ACH, processing. And so literally the value proposition to that business could be, hey, you have one place to go for card and ACH processing, where a lot of these businesses have two different processors. They've got two different integration, two different sign up processes, two different customer support, two different reporting portals, and that can be a huge value add.
Love it. Hey, by the way, as I see a few of you are going to be getting ready to jump off, I'm going to keep answering questions, but do me one favor before you jump off. Even if you're one of the ones that said, hey, I've done 5 deals, 6 deals, 8 deals, whatever, head over and give me some feedback on the training. Maybe there's some things I missed that I'd love to get that feedback. everybody knows my email, or reach out to me. But go to ccsalespro.com/tilled, TILLED, before you jump off. Make sure you sign up for that real quick, because I would love to get your feedback on that. And I know Tilled would want to reach out to you as well. Jason says, basically there needs to be an extra layer before the customer. Yeah, that's exactly right, Jason. So you have the software company, then the software company is setting up merchant accounts, and then you have the actual merchant who has customers. Let's see here. Yeah, it's how people say they want to sell the self-storage software. Give me a little time on that, Keith. Okay, I'm working on it. All right. So we got our inside team going. We got to get the outside team, but that'll be a few months. Let's see. And we talked about the splits a little bit. Give an example, I think would really help. And you gave one earlier, I think, Caleb. I think you said something like, a software company does $100 million in I think you said an annual volume would generate what kind of money for the referral partner? Give another, maybe an example of that if you could. I can't remember the numbers you said.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you think about the numbers on, a software company doing 100 million in payments, typically we're seeing about 80 basis points or 0.8% in total margin available as that delta between kind of what the merchant pays and then the actual interchange plus cost of processing. And so that in 100 million would be like $800,000, of total margin. Typically, we're seeing about 66% of that going back to the software company. So it'd be about $500,000, of that margin going to the software company. And then there's $300,000, of that's left. And typically we're giving about 20% of the net to the referral partner. So that'd be about $60,000 a year going to the referral partner. And that could be $60,000 a year for life for setting up one phone call, with the Tilt sales team. So it could be a pretty massive ROI, on your time for getting us connected into the right deals.
Yeah, and even better, it's 60,000 growing, right? Like then every time they sign up, somebody else.
Next year it's 80 and then 100.
Right. Here's a really good question I never thought of. So Mike is asking, what specific title at the software company should you target? Like, do you recommend they go after the CEO, the CTO? That what are any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the size of the software company. A lot of these vertical software companies have 6, 8, 10, 12, employees. And so oftentimes, the CEO or the CTO could be a fantastic person, to speak with. The larger the company gets, the less likely the CEO is an awesome person, to go speak with. We're seeing more and more that these vertical software companies are actually hiring, a VP of payments or a director of payments on their team. And so if they have somebody in a payments focused role, that is almost always the perfect person to speak with. And that's where LinkedIn can be a really powerful, resource where you can go research the company. How many employees do they have? Do they have anybody, in a targeted, product management role or actually a director of payments role? And that would almost always be the appropriate person to talk to if they have that.
Love it. There are so many other questions in here, and I'm just gonna do two more real quick, and then what I'm gonna do, everybody, is I'm gonna send all the list of the questions to the team at Tilde, and I'm sure they'll respond as best they can to answer the rest of these. So
probably gonna spark a couple of blog posts over the next couple of weeks.
I really appreciate everybody telling us we're doing a good job. I appreciate it. I want to cover a couple of things really quick. So, what's the biggest difference between Tilde and say a Stripe Connect? I mean, obviously the big one is monetization, right, Caleb? I don't know if there's anything else you want to highlight real quick about that, but the idea that, if they're integrated with Stripe Connect, the odds are they're probably not making very much money, if anything, on the payment processing, whereas with Tilde, they would make a lot more. I think the API is a little easier to use myself, but I don't know. Anything else, Caleb, you want to highlight on that one?
Yeah, I mean, Stripe Connect is probably our number one competitor in the space. I'd bet 40% of our customers come to us from, Stripe Connect when we're in RFPs. It's typically against Stripe Connect. So, I've answered this question once or twice. I think payments monetization and the idea of the software company generating revenue is typically kind of the first thing that everybody thinks about. But there's also a lot of like branding concerns. So for a lot of software companies, they really want their brand front and center, and Stripe is very proud of powered by Stripe, and that's really how they like to put the Stripe brand out there. Whereas we offer free turnkey white label solutions to our partners. And then we talked about this on one of the prior podcast episodes, but card present and the terminal offerings that we have available has been a major differentiator relative to Stripe. And so the new partnership that we have with Avy is definitely a major differentiator. We're Stripe terminal for software companies, that are needing a card present payment solution is typically a pretty frustrating experience, for those software companies.
Yeah, so that's really good. The last one, I'm gonna do my best to summarize an answer to like 20 questions, and then Caleb, you can finish this off here. So there's a lot of questions about, is Tilde doing the processing? What does the underwriting look like? Are you looking for large credit card companies or individual agents? So I just want a couple things I'm just gonna summarize, and then Caleb, correct me if I miss anything, and then give us some closing remarks. So Tilde is a PayFac, and Tilde is allowing the software companies to use them for processing. So if the software company is currently with, say, processing through an ISO, then Tilde would be competing with that ISO. So you would be stealing the software company from the ISO and taking them to Tilde. That's what that would mean. So yes, Tilde is the one doing the processing. And maybe Caleb, you could touch on the underwriting piece a little bit. Because I know that's a big differentiator. What does the underwriting process look like, maybe relative to what agents and ISOs might be used to? And then give us any closing thoughts or remarks that you have, and then we'll close it out today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way that I think about, Tilde, we've built our own gateway. We also have the ability to process transactions. So we bring all of that to the table. And so it's one contract, one integration, one partner, for the software companies that are partnering, with Tilde. From an underwriting perspective, the way that we go about underwriting is kind of a multi-step process. So first we underwrite the software platform itself, and that's usually like a 1 to 2 week process for us to go through and actually underwrite the software company and make sure they're not on the match list, they're in industries that make sense, and then determine the funding times and things like that for the underlying small businesses. The actual underwriting process for the dentist or the golf course, the small business owner themselves, we have a white label digital application process, so the software company can put their logo, their domain, their color scheme on our online boarding form. There's no supporting documentation required. And so by default, the merchant's not having to upload a driver's license and voided check and processing statements. When they click submit on that application, we can return a decision in 1 or 2 minutes. And so you can really have real-time, instant underwriting available, for these accounts where, a minute later, that small business owner is ready to start transacting on Tilde. And so it really can be this seamless, frictionless, instantaneous process to get these customers online. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to come out and learn more. As you said, this easily could have been a 4-hour ordeal, especially with all the Q&A here at the end. And so if we weren't able to answer your questions, or you're curious to learn more, certainly check out ccsalespro.com/Tilde and get access to the new training console that we have available. You can also reach out to me or James on LinkedIn. I think we're both pretty active on LinkedIn and happy to answer any additional questions that we can, and also head over to the Tilde website. We've got a ton of blog content and resources if you just want to learn more about what we do. There's a ton of content available, and would definitely encourage you to reach out and set up some time with the folks on our team. We've got several people on the Tilde team that are directly focused on our agent and ISO partners to help you guys be successful selling to these software companies, because we all only win if we close the deals and launch the customers. And so we want to really help you guys be successful. It's why we're investing in the relationship with James, in the content, in the training series, because we really want to help you guys find success selling to software companies and be a part of changing this industry for the better.
I love it. Well, Caleb, thank you so much for your time today. For everybody listening, and again, to clarify for myself, a couple other questions about it. We're talking about individual agents, small ISOs, big ISOs. It doesn't matter. If you want to make money by integrating payments with software companies, you should check it out. So the link, one more time, ccsalespro.com/Tilde, TILLED. Make sure you fill out that form today before you forget about it. Go to the next page, sign up there so you can get the free training and log in there. Caleb, this has been a lot of fun as always, and I wish you great success this year.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.